5 idioms beginning with letter A. The idiom number 1 is a hard nut to crack, which means a problem that is difficult to solve. For example, the questions of mathematics subject turn out to be a hard nut to crack for most of the students in the exam. The idiom number 2 is apple pie order, which means neat and tidy in the arrangement. For example, when my mother is at home, everything is in apple pie order. Idiom number 3 is a blessing in disguise, which means something that doesn't look good at first. For example, getting fired from a job turned out to be a blessing in disguise as it compelled him to start up the business that made him a billionaire. The idiom number 4 is a dime a dozen, which means something that is quite common and has less value. For example, this handbag is a dime dozen in the market. The idiom number 5 is a fish out of water, which means being in an uncomfortable and unusual situation. For example, I felt like a fish out of water in my first interview. The idiom number 6 is a sight for sore eyes, which means someone or something that you are happy to see. For example, after the hours of exhaustive walk, the scenery of magnificent Himalayas was a sight for sore eyes to me. The idiom number 7 is a little bird told me, which means it is used when you get the information from someone but you don't want to reveal who that person is. For example, a little bird told me, "It is your birthday today." The idiom number 8 is at stake, which means in danger. For example, during this pandemic, our lives are at stake. The idiom number 9 is against the clock, which means work as fast as possible to complete within the deadline. For example, the whole team is working against the clock to finish the project in time. The idiom number 10 is a diamond in the rough, which means a person with great potential but lacking some refinements. For example, although he sings well, he still is a diamond in the rough. Idiom number 11 is a cinch, which means a very easy task. For example, beating our opponent team will be a cinch since they are not prepared at all. The idiom number 12 is as the crow flies, which means distance measured in a straight line. For example, the nearest petrol station is about 1 kilometer as the crow flies. The idiom number 13 is as bold as brass, which means shameless, arrogant, and impudent. For example, Lina behaved as bold as brass in front of her boss after resigning from her job. The idiom number 14 is a wet blanket, which means person who spoils the fun of other people. For example, I'm afraid he'll be a wet blanket at the party tonight, as he is uncontrollable after being drunk. Idiom number 15 is a blind alley, which means path or course of action that leads nowhere. For example, I doubt that our experiment will result to a blind alley. The idiom number 16 is apple of eye, which means someone or something that is very precious. For example, my girlfriend is apple of eye for me. The idiom number 17 is apple of discord, which means something that causes an argument, trouble, and unhappiness. For example, the company established by their father became an apple of discord among two brothers. The idiom number 18 is ants in pants, which means become extremely excited or worried about something. For example, the kids had ants in pants when they heard that we were taking them out for their favorite movie. The idiom number 19 is across the board, which means applicable to everyone or everything. For example, the progress is seen across the board in the company. The idiom number 20 is acid test, which means a conclusive test that proves the quality and value of something. For example, the product looks great, but its acid test will begin once it's out in the market. The idiom number 21 is a man of action, which means an energetic person who actually does the thing rather than just thinking and discussing about it. For example, the new CEO of the company is a man of action. He completed this project in a short period of time. The idiom number 22 is all the rage, which means quite popular for a short period. For example, smartphones have become all the rage in recent years. The idiom number 23 is at sixes and sevens, which means to be in a state of confusion or uncertainty. For example, after passing high school, he was at sixes and sevens in choosing his college major. The idiom number 24 is all ears, which means listening eagerly with full attention. For example, when teacher was announcing the result, students were all ears. The idiom number 25 is as different as chalk and cheese, which means two things completely different from one another. For example, although my daughters are identical twins, they are as different as chalk and cheese.